course, the discussion does not have to be confined to the issues which I raise, but it'll give you an opportunity to make comments, to make recommendations, and to share your views. And I thought that it was appropriate that I should use the same theme as the theme in our Independence Day church service. And the theme was surmounting the challenges and embracing the opportunities together. And I'm saying hopefully at the end of that exercise, we will know two things, we'll be aware of two things. That the challenges that we have are not insurmountable. And we can be in a better place a year from now if we take responsibility and take responsible action. And I want us to remember that. And secondly, taking responsibility and taking responsible action is not about the person standing here or the person sitting next to you. It's about you. Each of us has a role to play. And in order to play that role, you got to understand the issues, we got to accept the responsibility, and you got to take action. So what I'm hoping to do today is to share some of the issues with you and hopefully increase our level of understanding of the issues, and therefore be able to know what our roles are and how we accept the responsibilities and take the relevant action. And what I'm saying here is the same sentiment that was echoed by Her Excellency Paula May Weeks in her Independence Day address. And I want you to listen carefully to what she said. She said our attitude and the lens through which we view our roles as citizens must be firmly aligned to the needs of our country, which at this time in our history seem more demanding than ever. And she went on, every individual has a role to play in nation building, as institutions merely facilitate the democratic process. The active participation of every citizen is required to ensure that our children inherit a stable and prosperous country. In other words, she's talking to each of us. She's not just talking to the country. She's talking to each citizen, each resident, each individual. And it was very interesting. In his Independence Day address, Prime Minister Keith Rowley linked the beginning with the present. When he quoted Dr. Williams, Dr. Eric Williams, when he advised in his first Independence Day address, whatever the challenge that faces you, place always first the national interest and the national cause. And therefore I want to stress that that admonition from Dr. Williams, the first Prime Minister, and supported by Dr. Rowley, the present Prime Minister, applies to all, regardless of religious orientation, economic circumstances, or, in your case, geographical location. It applies to nationals in the United Kingdom as much as those residing in Trinidad and Tobago. And let me tell you something. One of the things that heartens me as a High Commissioner for Trinidad and Tobago at this mission is the commitment and the loyalty of many members of the diaspora with whom I have come into contact. And I recognize, however, that there are many of you who might not be able to participate as fully as possible for varied reasons, among them the difficulty in getting to this place. And that's why every time I see you here, I must feel very comfortable and very happy that you're willing to make the effort. But I know, coming from a small island, it took me some time to adjust to the distances and the time and the amount of effort that it sometimes takes for people to get here. So, in an initial effort to increase participation, we are streaming today's meeting. And I want to compliment and let us give a hand to these two gentlemen who are facilitating, and at the risk of taking tears out of school, we have no money and they didn't charge. So. And we are hoping that in the future, we'll be able to stream all relevant major activities. And hopefully by that time, we'll be able to have different arrangements. We are continuing, and we keep our nationals abreast. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we send out emails and so on topical issues. And I want to announce that by the middle of next month, we should be publishing our next edition of our newsletter. But I'm saying that this face-to-face interaction is perhaps the best medium for disseminating information and sharing ideas. And therefore, I want to use this forum and maximize or optimize the benefits. And hopefully, those at home and those who will be looking at it in the ensuing weeks will be able to benefit from this exercise. So let me just start with the economy. And the reality is, fiscal 2018 was a difficult year for Trinidad and Tobago between October last year and September this year. It was challenging. Sacrifices had to be made and difficult decisions had to be taken. We can always make the point, there's not much difference between managing a country and managing your home. If the income coming in is less, you got to make sacrifices. Things have to change. You got to do less with less. That's the reality. And it is the same situation facing Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time. We have had an energy-based economy for many decades. We had dwindling production, dwindling reserves, increased cost of production, and an increased debt burden. And it is in those circumstances that the economy had to be managed and people's expectations had to be managed. Now, the Minister of Education has advised that the situation is improving and we should get some feedback on that when the budget is read next Monday. As you know, Monday is budget day, so I hope that you'll be able to understand what is going on. But I want you all to understand that it's not all doom and gloom, that things are improving. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, the energy industry in Trinidad and Tobago is not dead. In fact, I had a meeting recently with a Shell official who confirmed that Shell is going to be investing somewhere in the vicinity of $3-4 billion in Trinidad and Tobago. BP is going to be investing like $8 billion in Trinidad and Tobago over the next 10 years. We all know of the recent agreement signed between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago, where gas from the Dragon field in Venezuelan territory is going to be piped in a pipeline to the Hibiscus platform owned by Trinidad and Tobago. Shell has interest in both, so Shell is going to play a very critical role. And this is likely to provide significant amount of gas that we can use, of course, to ensure that some of the projects which might have been in a little danger, that these projects, in fact, could be carried through. The point about it, however, is that these things are going to take time. Recently, the Prime Minister would have signed an MOU with Guyana. Guyana, as you know, has got what you might call an oil bonanza. And that, of course, is going to come to fruition maybe within the next 3 years or so. But the reality is that even though things are improving, the point about it is that it is going to remain challenging for some time. And I just want to quote from something that the former central bank governor indicated, because he said, we must be aware that the road ahead will continue to be difficult. Many of those initiatives of which I spoke will be monetized under maybe a minimum 4 years. They will not be monetized under 4 years. And he said, the economy is turning around slowly in the sense that we are getting some good news from the energy sector. And I think if you look fine enough, confidence in the private sector is improving. But this is the critical part. People tend to expect good times now. I don't think now, because we still have a serious debt problem. The point I want to make is that things are improving, but do not expect any economic miracles. And people have got to understand the realities, and I reiterate the need for everybody to participate in the process. One of the areas, of course, that we have to look at is the area of diversification. And you've heard the word very often. But diversification also does not take place overnight. And sometimes it has to be done in various ways. And this is one area where I believe that we in the United Kingdom can play a role. Because diversification is not only about big projects. If you've been following the situation in Trinidad and Tobago, you recognize that the Minister of Trade in recent times have been visiting various countries, especially in Latin America. And even recently, the Puerto Ricans had a trade mission to Trinidad and Tobago. So they want to spread the net to include as many countries as possible and to diversify the economy as much as possible. So what I'm asking us to do as members of the diaspora in the United Kingdom is to be aware of the situation, to understand that we're in a better place now than we were a year ago. And we could be in a better place a year from now if we show the necessary, as our friend there, have the necessary resilience and the necessary commitment and recognize that we also have a role to play. Because I want to speak to you about investigating the possibility of diaspora engagement, diaspora investment, and diaspora involvement. Most of the countries in the United Kingdom at this point in time understand the power of the diaspora and how that diaspora power should be leveraged to improve the quality of life of people in the diaspora and people in the sending country. One country, I think, is Jamaica, actually has a minister with responsibility for the diaspora. Last month, I think it was, St. Lucia brought all their diaspora representatives from the developed countries throughout the world and had a big conference to discuss ways and means by which the diaspora could assist. We would have discussed at a previous meeting, how do we get persons in the United Kingdom with funding to be able to find ways and means to channel that investment, and how do you create the linkages between the people in the diaspora here and Trinidad and Tobago? Because I know the reason why you are here is because your loyalty and your commitment to Trinidad and Tobago remain. And I know many of you are frustrated. I see my good friend there, and I think of the Trinidad and Tobago Healthcare Forum, and what they are trying to do in order to bring their skills and their talents to Trinidad and Tobago, and that there are challenges, and how do we create the linkages? And that is one of the challenges that I think we should give ourselves over the next year, to see how we can ensure that the diaspora power is leveraged to the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to say a little bit about tourism, but I don't want to get into all the economics and so on. I want to talk about tourism from a personal perspective and from a people perspective. And I want to tell you, there's a difference between selling your country and selling your country short. And I'm saying that some of us are guilty of selling our country short. We tend not to get excited about the positive things. And we tend to become very influenced by all the negatives. Trinidad and Tobago is still a beautiful place. And I'm saying to you, you have to be honest. I will never encourage anybody to give a false impression about Trinidad and Tobago. We have challenges, we have issues. But you have to give a balanced view and highlight some of the positives. You know, I compare sometimes the way in which some of our nationals speak about Trinidad and Tobago and how some of the other nationals speak about their country. And it's a different ball game. You speak to them and they could tell you 5 reasons why you must go and visit them. I remember I was in an island, I wouldn't call the name, a friend of mine, and and the road bumpy and we in the taxi, and my friend said, but them roads are real bad. And the taxi driver said, you want to sit on board there, we're looking good, boy. In other words, he is switching our attention away from the negatives and to tell us something beautiful about his country. And I'm saying, some of us would have now joined in and tell them about other roads that. So I'm just saying that it's a mindset. And you have got to recognize, yes, we have to increase our level of advertisement and so on. But one of the most effective ways of communication, as we're doing here, is face-to-face communication. If you tell somebody and somebody tells somebody, etc. How many of you, and I want to challenge you, how many of you here, if you meet somebody today, and I say I'm giving you $1,000 to give them 10 reasons why they should visit Trinidad and Tobago, how many of you will walk away with money? After a week. But but in all seriousness, I think we got to be prepared to understand the importance of not just allowing the negative headlines and the sound bites. It should not be ignored, I must say that. But there are a lot of good stories that are not being told. And I think we have a responsibility to start telling them and recognize. Because, and while I'm at this, we might as well talk crime. And I'm not making an excuse. Crime exists everywhere. And if you look at the statistics, you'll be surprised to know some of the places where crime exists. But crime exists along with some good things and some positive things. And therefore, we cannot, when we speak about Trinidad and Tobago, especially Trinidad, just make that link, automatic link between that and crime. Not recognizing that when you put it in the overall context, it does not make Trinidad and Tobago an unsafe place to visit. It does not make Trinidad and Tobago an inappropriate place to invest. It does not make Trinidad and Tobago a country with which you cannot partner. And I'm saying, therefore, and I want to repeat, by all means, tell the truth. But tell the whole truth. Because we sometimes are our worst enemies with respect to people's impression of us. And if you observe that countries and cities that have the best record in reducing crime are those countries where all the sectors, the majority of the people, accept the challenge and share the responsibility. Because crime didn't come up overnight, you know. And crime is not going to be solved overnight. Crime is not caused by one reason. And therefore, consequently, the response cannot come from one source or one sector. Everybody has got to be involved. We've got to understand that it's going to take some time before we get things back to where we like it to be. And it's also going to take different strategies and so on. There's no magic wand. But the important thing is that we've got to realize, one, that it's going to take some time. Two, it can get better. Three, it will get better if all of us get involved, rather than using crime as a way to make each of us look bad and worse. That is not the way to approach it. I just want to remind you all that while we're in the subject of tourism, that the World Travel Market is on again in November, and we will, of course, Trinidad and Tobago will be competing, because it's a serious competition with the other countries, of course, for the UK and the European market, which are among the most profitable. And I want to take some time to discuss two issues that are closer to home, because you didn't just come here to talk about what the relationship with Trinidad and Tobago. You come to also to talk about things that affect you. And I want to say a little bit about Windrush. Because I think we need to update people about where the situation is. Now, Windrush is a work in motion. But I think that you have to be aware of the current status, and most importantly, be prepared to facilitate the advancement of the process. Because you see, things are happening every day. And if you don't keep abreast, you could end up not being able to participate in a way that benefits you and the people close to you. So where are we? We are now at a point where the majority of persons who should have been sourced as being affected by the whole Windrush issue, the information coming from the Home Office is that the majority of them have been identified. Now, the point is what has happened since they have been identified. And the information that I'm giving you here is information that is maybe a little dated, but it's the last official information that I have, and I don't want to give you information that is not accurate. So they have one category of individuals who have been given documentation confirming the status and the right to remain in the UK. And the statistics about the end of July was that of those, there were 2,272, and of those, 86 were nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. The most recent figure I have is that that figure has gone up to close to 2,500, but I don't know how many of them are Trinidadians and Tobagoans. And then there was another Windrush scheme which ensured that members of this generation, their children born in the UK, and those who arrived in the UK as minors will be able to apply for citizenship. This scheme came into force on the 30th of May, and after about 2 months or so, there were 59 Trinidadians and Tobagoans out of 1,465. That number has gone up. My last figure is 2,121. Again, I don't know how many Trinidadians and Tobagoans are involved in that. But I'm saying that the process is continuing. And if you are aware of anybody, whether in Tobago, in the UK or Trinidad and Tobago, because remember, there were individuals who may or may not have, who may have been deported illegally, and these persons also have the right to be considered for return to the United Kingdom. And basically, the United Kingdom government has made a commitment to pay the airfares of those who, when they go to the High Commission in the respective countries, they deem them to be persons who should be eligible to return to the UK. It doesn't really cost them anything. But the one that I want you to get involved in is this. It's the Windrush compensation consultation. Because as you know, quite a number of the people involved in this process, quite a number of them would have suffered. Whether they lost jobs, they lost their houses, some of them got sick, they didn't get NHS benefits, etc. So the point about it, how do you bring these people back to the point where they can say, well, okay, even though this happened to them, the playing field has been leveled. So they have established this compensation scheme for those from the Windrush generation who have suffered loss as a result of their inability to demonstrate their lawful immigration status. Now the point about it that this has been open for some time, but it closes on the 11th of October. And you can submit views, anybody, you don't have to be a Windrush victim. Submit views on who should be eligible, what losses should be compensated, and how the process should work. I'm saying, therefore, that if you are interested in this process, you can get involved. If you know people, even people whose status has already been redefined, and they have citizenship and they have a right to remain, those people have the right to be compensated. But how are they going to be compensated? What they've done is that they've sent out this call for responses, and it means therefore that people can contribute to this particular process. So I'm hoping that those among you would in fact participate in the process, because sometimes they criticize us and say we talk, but we don't take action and we don't get involved. So I want us to bear that in mind. And then I'm coming to the end just now, but before I do that, let me just say one other thing. A lot of times you get caught up with a particular issue and not recognizing that there are other issues that may be just as critical. And I want you never to forget the admonition from Ms. Booth, the lawyer who came here. And one of the points that she was making is that the challenges facing nationals in the United Kingdom go beyond Windrush. And there are other issues. I won't go into all of them, but she did mention them, some of them quite insidious, which affect us and which we must bring into the public domain. And I'm saying that we must take the responsibility to do so and find ways and means. Just as how we righted the Windrush wrong, we could be in a position to right some of those wrongs that affect us in the United Kingdom. And finally, Brexit. The reality is that the United Kingdom is set to leave the EU in March 2019. And the only thing that you could say about it is that that exit is operating in an environment of unpredictability, uncertainty, and utter confusion. It's a reality. And it's not a criticism, it's a reality. Anybody involved in it, whether politician, whether official man in the street, they will tell you. Because we don't know what kind of deal is going to be made. We don't know if the deal is going to be made. And if the deal is made, there's now a school of thought that maybe another government somewhere down the road could overturn and turn that deal. So in those circumstances, it's difficult for countries, especially smaller countries like Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean, to plan or to strategize. And I know that what the CARICOM countries are attempting to do is to try to have a united front, because remember, historically and economically, there are very close ties between the United Kingdom and the Caribbean countries, the CARICOM countries especially. In addition to that, we recognize that there are certain concessions which CARICOM countries are enjoying as a result of their relationship with the United Kingdom, and by extension, the United Kingdom's relationship with the European Union. Now, all of these things are likely to have to be renegotiated. Whether they're going to be renegotiated to the benefit, continued benefit of the islands, I do not know. And the countries in the Caribbean, I do not know. But what we're seeing is that the countries in the Caribbean, of course, are also looking for other other arrangements and other relationships, whether it is with China, whether it is with the Latin American countries, as I told you. The Minister of Trade is doing some work in the Latin American countries, whether it's in Canada. So the point I'm making is this, that we are in a state of flux, that the next couple of months, maybe the next couple of years, are going to be unpredictable. It means that in those circumstances, there is a possibility, maybe even a probability, that some of the challenges facing the Caribbean countries, maybe even facing Trinidad and Tobago, some of those challenges might become even greater. And therefore, in those circumstances, the role to be played by people like you, one, to manage your situation in the United Kingdom, because one does not know how it's going to affect jobs. One does not know how it's going to affect transportation. One does not know how it's going to affect health services. It's a time when you've got to be prepared for anything and be prepared to recognize that in the circumstances, you will have to show that level of resilience. So obviously there are a number of things I could have spoken about, but I just want to urge us as I conclude that you have got to keep abreast of the latest developments, whether it is in the United Kingdom or in Trinidad and Tobago or in the Caribbean region or in the Commonwealth, because we got to understand that in this, regardless of what other presidents might say, in this globalized world, what happens in the regions and in the multilateral agencies is as important as sometimes as what happens in the countries. And therefore we need to keep abreast. We need to ascertain our role, not just in our relationship with the United Kingdom, but in our relationship with Trinidad and Tobago. And to remember, these are unpredictable times, and they're possibly turbulent times ahead. But I just want to indicate, on a positive note, that in challenging times, those that are best prepared and most resilient often find the greatest opportunities. And I want to close by reiterating what I said in the beginning. In order for us to survive and to develop in those challenging times, all of us have got to take responsibility and take responsible action. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. And we will be opening the floor shortly for questions and comments. I just wanted to reiterate, if there's one thing I could have taken from what His Excellency said, is that definitely all countries all across the world have their challenges to deal with. We have ours in Trinidad and Tobago. I have lived here in London for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, and I've seen London face lots of challenges. We in Trinidad and Tobago have not had to deal with terrorist attacks. We've had to deal with crime, we've had to deal with murder, but you know, we have not had a terrorist attack on the scale that I've seen within the United Kingdom since I've been here, as well as some of the hate crimes that I've seen. I have not seen in Trinidad and Tobago as yet, as I have seen and heard in the United States, of gunmen walking into our schools and just shooting up our students. So every country has, you know, their challenges to face, and Trinidad and Tobago is no different. But it is our land, it is our home, and we have to continue to celebrate what is good about it. So right now we'll open the floor for questions and comments.
I want to start with I want to start with tax haven. I read somewhere that Trinidad and Tobago is a tax haven and that the EU was going to do something drastic, but I don't know because of the Brexit situation if that is still on the cards. So could you enlighten us on anything like that?
As far as I'm aware, Trinidad and Tobago is not a tax haven. In fact, Trinidad and Tobago has had a very responsible approach towards that particular issue. And, you know, I am a member of the CARICOM Heads of Mission caucus, and it's an issue that we have discussed and made, you know, some observations. That here you have a situation where an entity outside of the Caribbean made their own rules, set up their own conditions, and then, of course, start blacklisting countries. And countries have, in fact, in recent months, I know there were 2 Caribbean countries, I can't remember the names offhand, which have been able to get the names off the blacklist. And I don't think that either of those countries have stronger legislation than we have. So I suspect that within, you know, a short time that this is going to be rectified. But I want to give you the assurance that, of course, illegal activities occur, but Trinidad and Tobago is not blacklisted. One way that you can look at that, there are a number of countries, you know, where throughout the country you can do very few bank transactions because the multinationals just not dealing in those particular countries because of the laws and the regulations and so on. Trinidad and Tobago is not in that particular position. So I just want to give you the assurance that yes, there are some challenges coming out of a European entity, but Trinidad and Tobago is not a tax haven.
Your Excellency, London, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lawrence Carbon, and there's some points which you mentioned regarding crime, etc., tourism. My colleague and myself, which is Lawrence Denise Ramsey, have some positive and interesting feedback, which we've been working on for many years, to benefit the lives of the youth and disenfranchised individuals in Trinidad and Tobago. I just started this little sentence I have written down. My name is Lawrence Carbon, and I'm basically the founder of an international charity company called Zodiac Arts. Bearing that in mind, we specialize with mainstream and special needs individuals regarding sports, recreation, and education programs. Now, these positive and beneficial sport we're going to talk about for about 2 minutes of your time is about Olympic weightlifting. And I pass you on to the President of Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Weightlifting Federation.
Thank you. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, following our last meeting, we went to the youth training facility in Aruca, and we have this fantastic initiative that we are going to give the young lads training, so when they leave the facility, they will actually have a vocational qualification that they can take and get employment. So it's not just an attendance certificate, it's a certificate that's been sanctioned by British Weightlifting. This is the sample of the certificate the young lads will be getting. We've done a workshop already. 6 boys have already qualified. We will be sending their certificates later on this year. We hope to get the program running throughout all the other facilities throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We've had undying support from UTT. We've done workshop in UTT. We were assisted by Dr. Miguel Jagasa. We've also done work in the Lady Hochoy Center for Special Needs. We were assisted by Rachel Shadu. Fantastic support. And we've had our funding from the International Weightlifting Federation, the IWF, who have been the backbone of this initiative. And we're just looking to try and branch out further and get lots of support from the diaspora as well as Trinidad and Tobago so we can continue this initiative.
Well, give a round of applause. Give them a round of applause. I I am aware of some of the challenges which they have to surmount, both in the UK and to a certain extent in Trinidad and Tobago. And the fact that they can speak with so much confidence and that they not only have achieved, but the prospects of even greater impact in Trinidad and Tobago, that is a tribute to their commitment and their expertise. So thank you very much. Keep up the good work. I know that there are going to be some more challenges, but I mean, you know, we are with this player background. All right. Yeah.
Your Excellency, my name is Steve Mohammed, and I've been hearing a lot of things about Petrotrin, that is closing and it's not closing yet. Can you enlighten us on that subject, and also what steps or actions, if Petrotrin should close, what sort of diversification the Trinidad and Tobago government intends to take?
Well, let me be very frank with you. Any information that I give to you is information that is in the public domain, so I have no special information on that. But what I can quote from is, what I can glean is from the statements that have been made by the Prime Minister and the Chairman of Petrotrin that the facility is going to be closed. It's not going to be done immediately. I think they told the last time I saw it that it was maybe a 3 or 4 month process. I do not know, and I don't think that there is any specific information on exactly what is going to happen at the refinery. I know that they spoke about dividing the refinery into different sections and focusing on exploration and selling the produce rather than refining. But again, as I said, that's all I know from that particular perspective. Recently, the Prime Minister did speak about the possibility of employment and opportunities in the Lambury area when he went down to Lambury and discussed the project involving the Chinese, and that is a massive project. And based on what he indicated, it could provide employment. I think the number that was spoken about is somewhere in the vicinity of 3,000. So basically, I am not aware as to whether there are going to be too many other opportunities in the oil industry, in the refinery aspect of it. And then remember that the government has not been sitting down. When they signed the MOU with Guyana, again, that will be opportunities, not necessarily get involved in the refinery aspect of it or to get involved in even the production aspect of it. But there are support services which are needed with respect to Guyana. If you know the Guyana coastline, bringing large barges in there, oil tankers in there could be challenging. So that there is an opportunity for Trinidad and Tobago or Trinidad to play a particular role in facilitating the movement, etc. So there are, and then Trinidad and Tobago has had a lot of experience in production, manufacture, sale of oil over the years, so that experience could also be utilized by the people in Guyana. So the point I'm making is that there are opportunities in the energy sector, maybe not the same opportunities that existed. For example, if you look at the arrangement with Venezuela, natural gas coming into Trinidad and Tobago. As I mentioned, many of the projects which had to be either aborted or suspended or scaled back because we couldn't guarantee gas. Those projects could go full stream ahead, and there will be opportunities there. The reality is, however, that in many of these instances, it's not going to happen under 2-3 years, so that you are going to have some challenges going on.
For them. No.
You're taping it, but I can speak without a mic. Good afternoon, everybody. Evening. Thank you very much. I'm very interested in the fact that we keep talking about the resources of the shale and gas, but what are we doing in terms of development, in terms of our natural rain and sunshine resources to fuel our toilets, our electricity? I'm very heartened. I just came back from China, and all the streets are lit by solar energy. So what are we doing in terms of capturing the rainwater, which I'm an old woman, that's all you could see. And I grew up with, the thing on the side of where you collected the water. Gutter in. Why are we taking all of that off? So we need to look at also how we are harnessing our natural power. All new buildings should be solar energy powered. I mean, sorry, I've forgotten the name of the brand new building. I mean, the toilets could be flushed with water just coming out, and the sun, and the energy. So where the energy of nature?
Well, again, in order to, unlike our time, when all you needed to harness, the energy was a barrel and a calabash. When you're doing it on a large scale, it does, and I'm not being facetious here, it does require significant infrastructure development, because whether you're dealing with clean energy and you're dealing with natural ways of doing things, but if you're doing it, take for example solar energy. When I was Chief Secretary in Tobago, we did look at solar energy, and in fact we did even start a pilot project and hoping that it would have caught on. But the problem was that the capital cost was high, and because we have relatively low energy prices in Trinidad and Tobago, unlike other countries, the payback time was extremely long. If you have high energy costs, it means that you can actually pay back for the capital cost maybe in 5 years or 10 years or whatever. In Trinidad and Tobago, it's low, it's going to take, so people did not think that it was in fact worthwhile. But it's interesting that you raise that, because I met a company, and they have actually gone to Trinidad and Tobago, and I understand that they've had some discussions with the Tobago House of Assembly about energy efficient lighting of the street lights and so on. I understand that there might be some interest there. So there are companies in the United Kingdom and throughout the world who can in fact operationalize what you're talking about there. But it's not as simple as taking the rainwater or taking the sun. In order to transform it, obviously it's going to take something. There also, we tried wind farms, right? Other countries have wind farms. Again, that is expensive. It's not totally reliable. You still have to have the grid and make sure that you have the electricity on the grid in case the wind falls and so on. So yes, it's a good idea. Yes, especially in the tropics and in a place like Trinidad and Tobago, you have to really try to focus on keeping it green, but it's not as simple to operationalize it as you might think.
Nothing I know in life is actually simple, but I would suggest that anybody, because water resources are actually extremely dire, the water resources of the world. And if I were building a house in the morning, I would put guttering in. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Sometimes things, and yes, you can't maybe do it on a massive level, but we need to know that the resources of the world is actually not infinite. It's going, and we need to get more responsible. When I was in Trinidad, I was amazed. My cousin laughed at me, about the constant throwing away of plastic, the erosion of the hills, with the cutting down of the trees, so the hills are, we need to get much more. I mean, I hear the gas, and I hear the shell, and I hear the BP, but as you were saying earlier on, what are the simple things can we do now within my radius that will affect change? We can't change the world, but we can affect what is going on around us.
Let me just say that I support that last statement 100%. with respect to guttering, and it's not just a matter of water, it's also a matter of protecting the land, because we did a survey in Tobago and we recognized that a lot of the landscapes that occurred, and even people's homes being affected, came because of the fact that they didn't have proper guttering, and then of course it causes the erosion. So that is something. The denuding of the hills, of course, again, that is something measures. The easy answer is that how that brings us this fiber. When they go there, they tourists. Is consensus
HFH UK. I took more notice of it since Rosalind told me more people. I think collaboration training mental institution back in Trinidad, around team lecture. Other world. For example, in Norway, he's doing further studies, and he's thinking about coming back and giving a paper on healthcare and how to improve healthcare in Trinidad and Tobago, doing it safe and with better quality. Other members, and these are members of my batch, Norma Haywood, she went on to become nursing administrator. She is active, she's the present permanent nursing administrator now, and we will have full cooperation from the nursing administrator back there. Another one of our, not really batch member, the brother of the batch member is now the hospital administrator, and he will also give help. Then we have the president of the Nursing Council of Trinidad and Tobago is one of my batchmates also, David Murphy, fellow Tobagonian, the Murphys. And so we want to have a giving back conference, symposium, symposium. Now, every Saturday or every other Saturday, we speak on Facebook. We have a conference call of 28 of us remaining. 4 of us have died. Not me. 4 have died. I'm 2 have dropped out before they never qualified. But 28 of us, well, whoever wished to speak, some are in the USA, some in Canada, some still in Trinidad. People are doing their PhD still, people have done their PhD, they're doctors. And we all say, look, let's give back. Many of us are going close to the grave. Like me, I think I'm very close, so I think it's time to give back before I die. So the 2020, one more thing I want to say. It's around the time of our anniversary, our 75th anniversary. Now, maybe it doesn't look that young, that old, but I'm really old like a road. It's our 35th anniversary since I went to nursing in Trinidad and Tobago. I've done my bachelor's degree, my master's. I'm a doctoral candidate for some years now. I've been that for many more years. I've done some participant observation, which have me a little bit living really. I went down to living kind of bad, being a participant observer, and I think that affected my health right now. Now I'm doing a different thesis, which is less. But however, I'm inviting the nationals to give back to Trinidad and Tobago, and we want to do that somewhere in February 2020. Details to be followed, and I'm hoping to have a meeting with Your Excellency in respect to how the government probably could help contribute to us giving back. For example, if we could donate a conference center, I don't know, back Trinidad Conference Center, some conference center where the Trinidad and Tobago government owned the hotel, where we can have a symposium. I was hoping we have keynote speakers in line already among us, right? A few of us are doctors, or even Dr. James across there. Are you a doctor yet? I'm not sure. I'm thinking very great with Dr. Carl Ryan. Or we are looking at, I think even Barack Obama could probably come back there. We could ask him. I know they normally like big fees, but we're going to ask him to waive that fee. Or even Donald Trump. I met him in 1999. But he may not come back. That is the facetious part of it. But someone who will attract attention, that everybody wants to come back to this giving back session. Plus, also apart from the educational part, we noticed while working there were awards, which were really terrible. I remember we used to do control and restraint, and one head nurse once said he did a tourniquet on a nurse's neck, on a patient's neck, to restrain him. And so we want to get equipment, the straight jackets, and wherever they need things. And on this children's ward back in St. Anne's Hospital, no clear room. So some of us are thinking about even doing a project during 2020 February to present some sort of facility also. So thank you very much. I'm inviting everyone to come back, give back 2020 February around carnival time. So we can have a wind down with the parties and so on, but also give back at the same time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Excellency. I want to query two things you raised in your speech. One was on the economy, where you said it's been a tight budget and whatever. Now, we being an oil-based economy, as I understand, the oil price is currently hovering near to $90 a barrel. When the previous budget was set, I believe the finance minister benchmarked it around $48 or $50 a barrel. So there's quite an excess there. So when you say there's a deficit budget or whatever, how is that when the oil price is performing at the current level? And with the Iranian sanctions with the US, they're now saying it's going to possibly go up to $100 a barrel. So when you talk about this strain on the economy, I'd like a little more explanation where, in light of what the current oil price is. And then the second point was the thing about the tourism. And what I've heard from people who in the industry is that the Tobago tourism is suffering badly with the problems with the air bridge and the sea bridge. So could you clarify that? Is the tourism declining?
Sure. Let me just deal with both of them. What I spoke about was not a deficit budget. I spoke about a debt burden. I don't know what kind of budget the Minister of Finance is going to have. But I want to relate it to the point I made, that there is no difference between running a country and running a house. If you've gone through a period where your wife stopped working and you built up a lot of debt over an extended period, when she starts back working, even though your income has increased, you're not going to clear off your debts immediately. It might take you years. And therefore, one of the issues that we face in Trinidad and Tobago is that the debt burden remains high. And therefore, even if the income flow might increase by a couple percent because of the oil prices, then we still will find it very difficult to get out of that situation. Because not because the wife started back, okay, we're going to buy a Mercedes. You have to pay off your debt first. And sometimes in order to pay off your debt, you have to live at the same level that you were living before, because the extra money just to go to debt. The second thing about that is that Trinidad and Tobago has now become in recent years primarily a gas-based economy. And therefore, even if the oil prices rise, in fact, we got to look at the gas prices, so that the oil prices might not necessarily have as great an impact. It will have some impact, as great an impact on the available resources as it would have been maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when it was not as dependent on gas. The second thing with respect to tourism and the air bridge and the sea bridge is that you've got to make a distinction between the two types of tourism that impact on Tobago. The domestic tourism that is between Trinidad and Tobago, and then of course international tourism. International tourism is bad. We have maybe about 20,000-25,000 visitors. I don't know what the figure is. And there are a number of reasons. Among them, of course, is airlift. In order to get people, you have to get the airlift right. There are challenges with respect to the rooms, etc. But I know that the Tobago House of Assembly is intent on ramping up its marketing. And hopefully that is going to have some impact coming out of the United Kingdom, coming out of Germany. I know that they've also made overtures in Canada. They're trying to get additional flights out of the United States and so on. So hopefully, and also the Scandinavian countries, where you get a high quality visitor. So that's the international tourism. Domestic tourism, of course, is something that is important to Tobago. Because remember, Tobago is an island of 60,000 people. and you have Trinidad with maybe 1.3, 1.4 million. And quite interestingly, Trinidad is one of the major markets for places like St. Lucia and Barbados and Grenada, their tourism. So basically, if we selling, I would say, as good or maybe a superior package to what they sell. If we get the air bridge and the sea bridge right, I think that could also give a serious fillip to the tourism sector in Tobago. So to answer your two questions, the one about tourism, you've got to make the distinction. The one about the debt is more about the present debt burden, which has to be paid down. Our debt ratio is getting to be maybe a little bit disturbing. And I'm certain that that is something that the government has to address. So even if your income stream might improve slightly, it does not mean that the austerity measures could be abandoned. And that is where we are in that situation.
Good evening, Mr. London. I'm sorry I walked in late. I missed your talk, so I don't know if you covered this. But I'd like to find out what's the current situation with respect to samples moving into Tobago. Sorry, and the second question. Just after the hurricane passed through the Caribbean islands, I was in Tobago soon after that, and I noticed there were a number of cruise ships coming in. What I also noticed as a corollary is that tourists would just be wandering around Scarborough with no organized activities to do. Tourism in Tobago is not organized. And I don't think it needs to be that way. I think there are alternatives. So I'm happy to think that international tourists, and you're sourcing better quality tourists. Better quality tourists don't always want to hear steel band. Sometimes they're accustomed to sedentary lifestyle, and they want organized activity. They want to go look at a church with stained glass windows. They want to go look at a museum that we don't have. So I just want to find out, how are you planning to retain that better quality tourists that are coming to Tobago? I don't see them. I know we captured a market after the hurricane hit the other islands, and they won't go into those islands, so we captured a market there. How are we going to retain that market?
Well, I know that the Tourism Tobago House of Assembly has set up a new, the Tobago Tourism Agency, TTA, and I am aware that they are in the process of coming up with a new plan, which would treat with those shortcomings about which you mentioned. The question of finding activities for tourists is something that we have grappled with over an extended period. And I am not certain that we have been as successful as we would like to be, because you're talking about a situation where maybe they have larger and larger tourist ships, some of them coming with 8,000 people, 3,000, 4,000 and so on. And in an island like Tobago, it's very difficult to find activities for everybody. And the thing about it is that a lot of the tourists that you see walking around Scarborough want to walk around Scarborough.
They don't have a choice. They don't have anything else to do.
Yeah, because some of them go to other places. If you go down, if you leave Scarborough then and you go down to Pigeon Point, you'll find hundreds of them there. And I'm saying yes, the situation must be improved, but I don't think that it is as dire as it might seem if you just stay in Scarborough. Because the way in which it is arranged is that they purchase their packages on board the ship. There have been complaints that there are not enough packages sold, and that is something that I know the Tobago House of Assembly has been trying to address for some time and is continuing to address, because you want to get a variety of packages. But then when you recognize how the cruise ship industry operates, where you on a ship, where you have everything that you need and something that you don't need. They come, a lot of them, when they come off the ship, they don't want anything to eat, they don't want anything to buy, they don't want anything, they just want to see and to experience. So that what is happening there is not something that is only evident in Tobago. It is a challenge that you have. And that is why some countries are not as gung-ho and the cruise ship industry as others, because the spend per visitor is sometimes not, well, obviously is minimal, and not as great as your overnight tourists. So I think that your concern is well founded. I know that it is being addressed, but I know that it is not going to be as easy to respond to it because of the fact that you just simply cannot organize all these enough activities to take care of maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people in a 3 or 4 hour period.
Just one thing else I want to add. I went to Jamaica some time ago just for a friend's wedding. And what I found about Jamaica is that all the activities weren't concentrated in a particular area. I know Jamaica is much bigger, but there were all these tours. There was a rum tour, somewhere about a very far-flung area. Then there was this alligator tour where they've got saltwater alligators. And then the Dunhill River waterfall was in a completely opposite direction. I know they've got the space for all of this, but they had to have started somewhere. And the thing is, I'm from Trinidad Tobago, so I'm from that windward side. And there is actually quite a lot of relics if you go up into Majeston, and it may seem to be remote, but there are roads. They just need to put in drainage so the water won't break up the roads. There are more relics there. I've paid and gone to somewhere, one of these English islands, and I went and I saw Jersey potatoes. Jersey potatoes is just potatoes. I saw Jersey cows. I grew up with cows in Kings Bay Waterfall. It was no different. So what I'm saying is that sometimes the ideas are right there, they're just not captured. Why can't they have a tour? Everything doesn't have to be done in Pigeon Point. Tobago is more than Pigeon Point. Scarborough has just become the business capital. There's nothing happening in Scarborough.
And I think, as I said, I think your point is well taken. I know that the decision makers in the Tobago House of Assembly are very well aware of it. And I know that they will be, or they have been making efforts. Maybe it hasn't reached fruition at this point in time. But I'm certain that they are aware of the situation, and a very astute observation.
Along the same point, that was...
Just
the same point I was going to make a comment. Same point I want to make a comment about. It's simply that, well, I'm a sort of grew up in Bum. I'm all over different countries. And I've been to other countries where tourism is there, and they highlight things which seem to be like so insignificant. For example, the mannequin piss in Brussels. It's a little boy peeing through, where that part. And I went to that, and I stoops. Everybody stoops. It's like, what? But it's in a guidebook, and it's a tour to go there. So they make a big thing about it. So all I'm saying, supporting the lady here, you can make little programs where people can go on it. They might be disappointed when they go to it, but at least it makes some money. And also the second little thing is about all these tourist shows I go to in the UK. I think I mentioned to you before, Mr. High Commissioner. I go to the tourist shows and other shows, Travel in the Sun, Home in the Sun, I go to all of them, most of them. And I never see a Trinidad Tobago thing being promoted. I try to, you told me go and find out where these people find out about how they got these advertisements, this travel agency. And they said that the Trinidad Tobago people themselves, the Tobago people themselves sent a poster to them to put up on their wall. So I think we probably, Trinidadians, supposed to put little posters in different places, go to these travel shows and sort of sell the thing. Pitch Lake, you could say, well, the place where you could get the blackest, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Make up a story now and make them interesting. And they'll go to it in Trinidad. In Tobago, likewise, Tulum and whatever, tell them this will make you young again.
Thank you very much. So I think we can accept the fact that the issues and the concerns are recognized, and I am relatively certain that they are being addressed. They're not going to be fixed overnight, but I think there are similar conversations going on in Tobago as we speak. Thanks a lot for that. Yes, sir.
My name is Andrea. I'm from Hello? Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea, and I'm not from Trinidad and Tobago. I am from Hungary, but I have been going to Tobago for the last 10 years, so I can say something about a tourist point of view. And I support this lady's views, and maybe just to give you a few ideas what would interest me or people from Europe. For example, we would like to hear or see more about your traditions. It can be traditional food, it's your brew food, it's your crab and dumpling. If I go to the beach, I see chips and chicken, which I can buy here, and I don't want to buy them in Tobago. I would love to taste the cassava pork, which I made myself as well with my husband. But I'd like to taste that in Tobago. If you have tours organized to the waterfalls, tours organized to, let's say, Roxborough and the area. Also, do you have cocoa plantation? I would love to see that, how they produce the cocoa, how they manufacture it. I would love to see how they plant your food, because for me they are all exotic foods, like your dashim, your sweet potatoes, your okra, everything, because we don't have that. So I'd be really interested to actually know more about this. I know you're in Scarborough, your botanic gardens, so I go there very often. Beautiful. The market would be a fantastic place to every tourist to visit. So if you have anything else to add, I think anybody interested in your traditional things, if that could be brought up, I think that would be very, very good.
Thank you very much. I know that Mr. Great had his cocoa plantation, and it was that was one of the areas that they visited. I'm not certain if it's still on the itinerary, but I know Mr. Dwayne Duff's cocoa plantation, exactly what you're talking about, was on it. But thanks for the suggestions, and I'll ensure that they get on to the relevant decision makers.
Your Excellency, fellow Trinidadians, Your Excellency, I think you should give $1,000 to that lady because she gave me 10 Just going back to your enlightening talk, you asked a question about who can list 10 things, and you also talked about, what was it there, about your country and being proud. You talked about crime and all that. I think one of the main things that we lack in Trinidad, and we sort of need to redesign and reinstall, is the mental wellness of the people. That huge aspect is missing. I work for the educational sector here. The Department for Education, and together with NHS collaboratively, they've made it mandatory for public organizations and so to have and develop basically mental health and well-being policies. Crime and all the physical things, tourism, I think all of that will take care of itself if we reinstall that happiness into our people. We're missing that. So my question is, what is the government doing to support the youth in terms of our well-being, our mental health? What policies are being introduced and developed and implemented to help reduce this escalating crime and all the bits that we have, and to reinstall the happiness of our Trinidad and Tobago people? Thank you.
Well, I'll be frank with you. I don't know the specifics, but I know that it is something that has engaged the attention of the Minister of Health. And I know that at some point in time that statements will be made on them. I can get the information and get it to you, but I'll be a little bit disingenuous if I tell you exactly what is being done. But I know it is something about which the Minister of Health is aware, and I know that something is being done. Exactly what I don't know. But if you leave your contact information with Ms. Amanaya, I will get the information to you so that next meeting, if I am due to come and talk. All right. Yes.
Again, it's me against Lawrence Harden. Two issues. I'm not a travel agency, etc. when it comes to promoting one's country, a lot of us have to take it in ourselves to try and develop our own way of activities itself. We can't rely on the government to do everything else. We have to take ownership of certain things. If you know something, we call it enterprise. My English is not so good. And another thing regarding crime, it's, again, a lot of the resources I have noticed that I find is from the UK. With support from Trinidad and Tobagonians working together can bring some sort of small impact, which hopefully will transcend into everyone else. As in the workshop we're doing with the young offenders, we've been doing this for the last 2 years without any funding. Our own initiative, volunteering, and after the 2 years we've now working in line with British weightlifting and zodiac cards to bring some stability to youth, which is targeting crime, tourism, and give them a self-purpose. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. We'll take this one last person, but the last two persons.
Okay. Hello, Excellency. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, from San Fernando. Here for about 4 months. Every year I come and support my sister from the I'm a past teacher. I can say that I lived in Tobago because my children, every holiday, I usually carry my children from small and my nieces into Tobago. Basically, you were thinking of tourism in Tobago for the foreigners. We have a lot of Trinidad and Tobago people who have never been to Tobago. And the reason why is newspapers usually have Tobago, only negative things comes to Trinidad. If somebody got killed, in fact, anything negative, the papers usually play it up more than the better parts. As a teacher, a retired teacher, I learned Tobago because I have family in Tobago and I love Tobago. It's my second home. Hopefully by next year I'll be living in Tobago.
Yeah, but it is.
What we need to do is to market Trinidad. The only time, at least my kids go to Tobago, as they are older now, is for the Great Race, which is FET, or Jazz Festival, or anything dealing with party. We need to market it for families, is what I did for my kids. And you need to get the schools involved. I noticed when I'm going to Tobago, a lot of Tobago schools are coming for tours in Trinidad, but I have not seen Trinidad schools taking the children in Tobago to learn about Tobago. Yeah. So I know you're no longer in the House of Assembly, I know you from there. I'm glad that you're over here, and I know you can do well for London. I didn't really appreciate Trinidad and Tobago until I came up here. When I came here, I had to look for a jersey with Trinidad and Tobago or anything. We don't appreciate Trinidad and Tobago because we are living there. And most of us, with the economy, is make your money, we can fetch it by Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we spend it. We don't really budget for our money, our education of our schools, and the way that Trinidad is, I know we are the most happiest place in the world, but we don't budget for the future. We basically budget for party, carnival, and fete. So I hope you can pass it on that we need some more tours. People don't know where to go when they go to Tobago. What tours to do. I know you do it for your tourism abroad, but we need to market it for Trinidad and Tobago. We have a lot of families would like to go to Tobago. I know the average is bad, but most of Trinidadians do not budget. Before I came here, I budget. My suitcase was packed 2 months before I even come here with what I had to burn up. And we need to get our people to help from here and Trinidad and Tobago to learn to love our country much more and stop spelling the negativity. Because I just came back from Europe and when I told a lady that I'm from Trinidad, she said, I have been in Tobago. And anywhere I go, I always put in Tobago, or if you come to Trinidad, make sure you go to Tobago. Yeah. I don't know how much of you all really sell our countries. I have heard Trinidadians bad talk their countries. I know that Trinidad has not done anything for me. It did give me education, but we have to learn, we have to work for ourselves. We can't work for our government. Government comes and goes, but we have to build the best for ourselves and our family by working and helping other Trinidadians. And this is what I have to contribute.
But we'll take that and I just make one final response to both people.
Yes. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's two things. One is to do with, since with the Brexit, I know that Trinidadians can go to Europe and they don't need a visa. Will that be affected, or is that something worked out with Trinidad government and Europe and nothing to do with Brexit? Because my sister went to Europe and she had difficulties and it was, drilling her about your visa and this and things. We didn't know about it. We didn't know. They went and checked and they found that we Trinidadians can go to Europe without a visa. And they need to highlight it a bit more. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, I've been getting WhatsApp about the nursing, that this government here is trying to get Caribbean nurses to come back here to work. Those who came here and work, especially in the Red Rush, look what's happened to them. They have to be fighting to get stayed here. So I just want to know if we Trinidadians are affected by that.
The only man to answer there.
About the Europe thing.
Well, like I always say, I am an immigration officer in Trinidad and Tobago. And so I can tell you what you require to enter Trinidad and Tobago. However, I am well aware of the Schengen visa issue that agreement was made between Trinidad and Tobago and Europe. The UK did assist us. It wasn't Trinidad and Tobago alone, but there were a few other Caribbean islands that were involved. It was an extensive process. In my personal view, I don't see how Brexit affects it, because when we had the whole process was a very lengthy one, and I'm happy to say that I was part of that process, because at that time I was the immigration officer in charge of passports, and the strength of our passports was a great influence in the abolition of that visa that was previously necessary. Because I came here in 2014 and I needed a visa to go to Brussels because we were going there to work. And subsequent to that, there were members of the International Civil Aviation Organization who visited. I had a 3-hour interview with them defending the process of our passports. Because all of that they were interested in how easily someone could infiltrate our system and false passports be issued. So it was an extensive process, so I don't see that Brexit taking place is going to affect that in any way.
All right, before Mr. Baird wraps up, let me just take the opportunity, one, to thank him for answering so conclusively a question that I didn't have a clue about. With respect to the issue of motorism, I take your point, but let me just say that Tobago has always understood the importance of Trinidad, and there have been various attempts made to market Tobago in Trinidad, in caravans, etc. But you have to have everything on stream. You're quite right, when people come, they have to have activities that will make them want to come back. But I think the most critical thing is that there have to be predictability about the coming. One of the big challenges we've had between Tobago and Trinidad is that people are not, even at this point in time and for a couple of years, in a position where they can guarantee that I can leave to be Trinidad at point X and time X and get back to work at time X and Y. And I think that until we get that predictability, marketing Tobago in Trinidad is going to be a challenge. So we're hoping, and I think you've seen what the government is attempting to do. We're hoping that we're going to get over the present challenges, and maybe when the new vessels on the sea bridge, when the new fast ferries come on stream, hopefully we'll be able to have that predictability. Because if somebody is going on holiday, what you don't want is hassle. You want predictability so that you can have a very relaxing weekend. Let me just take the opportunity before I hand over to Mr. Baird to thank you all for what I think was a very lively and enlightening session. And one of the things that I can say about this session is that I learned as much from you as hopefully you learned from me. And I think that this is what it's all about. But as we leave, I want us to remember what this whole thing is about. It's about taking responsibility and taking action. What we have been able to do this evening is to identify and to maybe better understand the issues. The next two steps now are important. How do I make a difference? You know, I must refer to my friend Mr. Roger James. He's become a friend in the last year or so because of what we had to do together and what I'm seeing he's doing now, he and his team on their own to get their objective achieved. And you talk to him, he tell you, not easy. It's frustrating at times. But I think that we all have got to understand that the results are always going to be worth the effort. And one of the challenges that I have as a commissioner, and Sir James have, and some of you have, how do you translate this energy, this commitment, this loyalty? How do you translate that into activities that benefit Trinidad and Tobago? And that is how I think we need to, that is where I think we need to focus over the next many months. So I want you all to listen very carefully to the budget. I want you to remember what the Prime Minister said when he was here about the role that the diaspora can play. And I want us, as one of our objectives between now and next year this time, is to determine and maybe operationalize some ways in which we can have some form of diaspora involvement, greater diaspora involvement, and beginnings of diaspora investment in Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you all very much for coming out. I hope that the train is running in your direction when you leave here. And I want to just take the opportunity to just hand you over to Mr. Baird for his closing remarks and any answers.
Thank you again, Excellency. Again, I would like to echo the sentiments of His Excellency, thanking each and every one of you for being participants in this evening's meeting. Know that the ideas you've raised, I hope you won't forget them. There's one thing that I learned, studying is that, and I'm thinking even about the comments made about what is necessary for tourism in Tobago, and even those persons who want to go home and help our health system, it would always be a good idea to probably research the health system, not by hearsay, but actually do research and find out exactly what the needs are before you have your conference in 2020. Right? Because you could go and you could try to regurgitate some of the things that some nurses in Trinidad and Tobago are already saying. Right? I can tell you that because I'm around nurses a lot.
The nurse administrator is with us.
Okay, that's all well and good, but sometimes when you're at the helm of a division or a section, you're not always aware of what is going on the ground. And sometimes there may be other things involved, because I have been here in the UK, as I said, for a while, and the NHS has a few problems here, quite a few problems. Right now, if I remember correctly, a court case started yesterday as a public inquiry into bad blood given during the 70s and 80s. Yeah, so like I said before, every country has challenges. The High Commissioner indicated it, and it is so. If we want to really give back to Trinidad, let's really look into Trinidad and Tobago and see what is really required. Before I close, I just want to highlight a few things. One, the Commonwealth Fair will be held on the 10th of November this year at the usual place, the Kensington Town Hall. And we're talking about giving back again to our country. This is another opportunity. You can't, many of us can't make it to Trinidad. There's an opportunity to give back something here. Because in you coming and participating, you are advertising Trinidad and Tobago. Right? As well, Ms. Cox will be holding the finals of the Miss Trinidad and Tobago UK pageant, as well as a cultural showcase this Saturday, September 29th at the Polish Center in King Street and Hammersmith. So, she has, you heard that. And there's another way for us to give back and give to support to someone who is highlighting Trinidad and Tobago here in the UK.
We also celebrated the Republic Day as well, so it's going to be really a trillion next week.
Okay, you heard it. Right.
Republic Day.
Yes, Republic Day was Monday. Right. The High Commission was closed in commemoration, and the High Commission will also be closed on November 6th in commemoration of the celebration of Diwali. Right. So before we close, I would just like to again thank the persons here on my right who have been streaming this live on Facebook. It is an opportunity to allow more of our nationals to be participant in when we have these meetings. So we thank you, gentlemen, very much. Okay, so as we close, we again wish to thank you for coming, and if you go to my left, the table down in the back where those two lovely ladies are standing, feel free to participate in refreshments provided. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.